vacation and I met him again. Island. Yes, it's Salt Lake City.
So, does he still have his house out there?
No, he's sold it.
So he's living here?
He's been here.
There's enough room there, so you can,
His son
there'll be
has
enough, I
established
believe.
in Salt Lake.
Where do you want to sit?
I'm just gonna sit right
Can we
here.
sit next to you?
Yeah,
Here for 2 years.
Why don't you,
let me sit on the corner.
okay.
I'm a corner sitter. Just move over so they want to sit behind you.
Is someone sitting by that? No, she's got Sharon. Sharon, now I want to sit by Laura. Okay. Thank you. Karen will sit by her.
Yeah, I'm sure it's fine. You do or not? Here now? Okay, so we'd have to go here. Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
Sam and Emily are Livestream.
Yeah, he's working in the Yeah, except he has one. And it isn't, it's the drive. Because he works his way down. He's used to that.
I understand.
I didn't, forgot my hearing aid.
You guys are amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, I heard the good.
Oh, you do have the thing. Are we missing anybody? Did we have everybody that? Yeah, okay. All right. Death has taken our beloved Judy Elikan, and our friends grieve in their darkened world. In their silence, there's lamentation, and in their tears, there's loneliness. Lost in their sorrow, may they find the presence of loving friends. Hear them, O God, and be with them. For Judy's love that united us in life and which death cannot sever. For her companionship that we shared along life's path, and which continues through the tenderness of memory. For the gifts of her heart and mind that brought us joy and happiness. All these are precious remembrances. And for all these and more, we give our thanks to God. In this time of grief, we listen to the voice of our sacred scriptures. That brings us the ever-new message of God's nearness. It tells us of our kinship with the Creator, in light as in darkness, in joy as in sorrow, in life as in death. Adonai ro'i lo exar binat eshigar bitzeni amei menuchot la'achaleni nafshi shovev. Yancheni v'maglei tzedek l'man shemo gam ki elech b'geit tzal mavet lo irara ki atamiti. Shiftecha mishatecha hemen yacharuni. Ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged soradai. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff that comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, and my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. L'kol zaman ve'et l'chol chevetz tachat hashamayim, et la'ledet ve'et lamut, et la'tat ve'et la'kor netua, et lifrot ve'et livnot, et livkot ve'et lishchok, et tzafod ve'et rakot. For everything there is a season and a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and there's a time to let go, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silent, and a time to speak. And so we are assembled with our friends in the darkness that has fallen upon them, and we lift up our voices to the source of life, and we ask for comfort, we ask for strength. We need light when gloom darkens our lives, and we need fortitude and courage when pain and loss assail us. May we find these in God, who preserves from destruction all that is good. And let us find them too in the presence of loved ones and friends who do God's work by binding up the wounds of the stricken. Who among us has not passed through trials and bereavements? Well, some bear fresh wounds in their hearts, and therefore feel more keenly the kinship of sorrow. Others whose days of mourning are more remote still recall the comfort that sympathy brought to their sorrowing hearts. May our sharing of sorrow and our deeds of solace bring comfort to the loved ones of Judy Elikan. Adonai natan v'Adonai lekach, Yehi Shem Adonai mevorach. God gives and God takes. Blessed be the name of God. And we are an ancient people, and we are well acquainted with grief and with the valley of shadows. Death and sorrow are not strangers to us, yet the centuries have taught us that a good name endures beyond the grave and that there is strength in faith. So we say, Adonai natan, you have given. And in my years of doing this, you've made the next line absolutely true. You gave us a loved one who will not be forgotten. And for all that was good and enduring in her life, we offer the deepest thanks of our hearts. Adonai lekach, God, you have taken. We pray now for the strength to turn our broken hearts into an altar of trust, before which we acknowledge your sovereignty and your love, and we say, Yehi Shem Adonai mevorach. Blessed be the name of God, now and forever. Amen and amen. Let's take a moment now for silent reflection. May the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. The family wishes you to know that there'll be a Shiva Minyan on Saturday night at I believe 8:30 at Judy and Len's home. After Saturday, the Shiva Minyans that follow will be at 7 p.m. Yeah. All right, so we gather together this morning, not solely to mourn the passing of our beloved Judy, but also and perhaps in equal measure to celebrate her life as well. And maybe that might explain the profoundly ambivalent emotions some of us are feeling this morning. Of course, the primary emotion we feel is grief. Death, whenever it comes, leaves us shattered, bereft, and bereaved. And those feelings of loss and loneliness, so terribly raw, are also so terribly real. And our healing begins with recognizing that. And still we sense there's another reality, a deeper truth. A lesson that death can teach, and it is a truly remarkable lesson. Even in the depth of our grief, we ask ourselves, can we really be unmindful or ungrateful for the blessing of having Judy in our lives for as long as you did? Would any of you trade even one day spent in her presence just so as not to feel the pain you feel this day? I don't think anybody would make that choice. We believe it is to those who grieve that God whispers God's ancient message of solace. God speaks saying, "By your very wounds shall I heal you," which I suppose is a way of saying, it's love that causes hearts to break. But in grief's long unfolding in time, we learn that it's also love that causes hearts to heal. It's time now to let time begin its healing work. It's time now to express our love and gratitude for the blessing of having Judy Elikan in our lives. Now, it should be said right at the outset that the definitive work chronicling the life and times of Judy Elikan is a remarkable book put together by Lynn, Francie, and Sharon as a loving tribute to Judy and Len on the occasion of an anniversary. Judy was born in Akron, Ohio, to Joshua Rapport and Freda Hahn. And just as an aside, Judy's mother absolutely, simply adored Len. Had to be said. Now let's get back to the story. Upon graduation from high school, Judy enrolled at the University of Akron as an art major, and all went well for a semester. But as they say, people plan and God laughs. Everything changed upon the return of a mysterious stranger to Akron and to Judy's life. You see, in the summer of 1957, Len took an internship with the Goodyear Tire Company in Akron, and as fate would have it, he encountered Judy at a swimming pool. And Len, ever the gallant, offered to rescue her from a gang of guys trying to dunk her. And when she went in his protective presence, he dunked her. Which I imagine she must have found funny or found Len cute. But for whatever reason it was, after that, she subsequently agreed to go out with him. And then she didn't think too much about it. Yeah. He was so young, and I never expected it to be more than a summer romance. I was surprised when he came back to Akron for the high holy days. I bet she was. And perhaps she was even more surprised when shortly after that, she found herself at the Bethel Synagogue in Akron, Ohio, in the rabbi's study, standing next to Len, and when Judy Rapport married Len Elikan. That's where the real story begins. And it's a love story. It's an epic love story. It's one of the great love stories. And I say that without irony or hyperbole or sentimentality. When Judy and Len promised to love, honor, and cherish each other and to do so for all of their lives, that's exactly what they meant. And this is exactly what I mean. The story of Judy Elikan and Len Elikan is first and foremost a love story. Well, Len broke the glass, and Judy's parents hosted a reception for the newlyweds at their home, and then off they went, the couple, for a beautiful, albeit brief, honeymoon in exotic and romantic West Virginia. Well, I'm tempted to say that that's probably because between the two of them they had nothing, but that's not exactly accurate. What's accurate is they didn't have a lot of money. That's true. But what they did have was an absolute commitment to plan for a family and to make that family secure. There was a really strong conviction, and it was one that they shared. That their family would be independent, self-reliant, self-sufficient. These were values that they believed in. And when they were blessed with their daughters, they taught those lessons, and they did it as the best teachers do, by example. Now, perhaps you're thinking, every day they were teaching their kids to be self-reliant. It sounds like a daily economics lesson. But listen to the daughters. Listen to them when they describe their childhood. It is amazing to me. Listen to how they describe their childhood and their parents. Lynn, a sprinkle of romance, a dash of adventure, an element of surprise, describe my memories of growing up with mom and dad. Not bad. I still recall mom dressed in Bermuda shorts and sleeveless blouse, popping corn in the kitchen on Bryant Drive and emptying it into a large brown paper bag. She told us to put on our pajamas and get in the car. Our queries as to why remain unanswered until we arrived, to our surprise and delight, at the drive-in movie for a double feature. Wow, nice treat. A little adventure. You don't exactly know where you're going, and when you find out where you're going, it brings joy. It wasn't uncommon for Dad to call on a Friday night and tell us all to get dressed up because he was taking us out to dinner. I remember the Chinese dinners in Wilkinsburg, at the whole family, listen to this, the whole family cuddling in bed on a Saturday morning. Passover seders with friends and family. Walking to shul with Dad. And too many car trips to recount. Now listen, I love to see Dad with his arm around my mom. I love how much they love each other. Gewalt. Well, that is something. Francie remembers, listen, when she thinks about her childhood, she remembers the simple things, Dad coming home from work, sitting next to Dad in synagogue. I liked watching Dad work on his car, cut the high weeds in the backyard with a scythe. Yes, a scythe. Mom is so good at all things art-related. I'm not sure how we made that transition to the scythe to a skilled artisan, but she can knit and sew and draw and has the coolest, most distinctive handwriting. I love that she dotted the I in my name with a flower on my paper bag lunches. Huh? How about that? How about that? How many of us get a mother who sends a little message along with lunch? I love you. We were so spoiled with the delicious family dinners Mom cooked. I associate so many dishes with her. Pepper steak, paper bag chicken, Welsh rarebit. I don't even know what that is. Lettuce and tomato sandwiches. And best of all, Untitled timely Chicken Kiev. And always on the dinner table, a tossed salad, and fill in the blank. Pickles and, there you go, applesauce. We took so many trips to Florida. I remember driving in the car more than anything else. Dad singing along with the country station and getting excited when he spotted cheap gas. The time we were at a motel and they let me and Lynn have banana splits and nothing else for dinner. Now that's nutritious. Stopping at Howard Johnson's. How many remember Howard Johnson's? Yeah, me too. Me too. And getting peppermint stick ice cream. Mom laughing at me and Sharon playing. This is a class. Mom laughing at me and Sharon playing Len and Judy in the back seat. I still play Len and Judy in a sense. Trying my best to emulate their incredible marriage and family. I try to follow their example. As a wife, I hope I'm loving and kind and affectionate and a good communicator. And as a mother, I try to raise children that are fiercely independent and have a strong work ethic, who are good, kind, and moral people, and mostly who value their family and approach and live with sheer joy. How about that? How about that for a memory? Oh, Sharon's going to take a shot at this too now. Years ago, I read a study about fathers of all daughters. Their approach to parenting was without gender bias. Instead of looking pretty, you say, all girl dads raise their girls to love and compete in sports, be CPAs or engineers, and stand up for themselves. And you and Mom raised us to be independent, creative, financially astute, and to think for ourselves. Now, I'm not sure about all of this, but apparently you had a running tally of who owed who in different, as you bet on different events. They actually kept a record of who owes who. And it was posted on the refrigerator next to another piece of paper tracking our point system, a unique approach to teaching us how to manage our money. Mom would wake us up on a Saturday morning and say, girls, we're going to Tampa for the day. I don't remember my mother doing anything like that. We would drive the hour to Tampa and go to at least 2, sometimes 3 malls. We would eat lunch at Chick-fil-A. The things that the kids remember and have how that memory connects with love. It's extraordinary, and we need to remember that the children are nurtured by these memories. We would go shopping. You took me to get my ears double pierced in high school, and you got yours pierced for the first time. Mom, you love deeply, you love fiercely and unconditionally. It's a mother's love. And as you know from all the crime shows you watch, it's the biggest deterrent from your children growing up to be serial killers. What a combination of things. The humor of this, to see how the laughter is connected to the love. What an extraordinary childhood you had. Yeah, really. I mean, who gets a childhood like that? And all of this barely scratches the surface of 1,000 moments that make up our extraordinary relationships. I love you, Mom and Dad. Okay. What if every child? When I was reading this book and trying to write some stuff as I went, the news was on. I heard it, and I'm reading this, and I'm hearing on the news how many children are at risk around the world. What would happen if every child on the face of the earth was raised that way, to be raised with unconditional love, protected and provided for, as you were. If every child could only have that experience, I do believe the world will be brought to peace quickly. Well, here's one for you. What a remarkable woman Judy was. She had a singular relationship with each of her grandchildren. Yeah, the thing that they had in common were Judy loved them unconditionally. But the way she expressed it was individual to each one of them. She bonded with them, connect with them, and across a vast array of various different interests and proclivities. What would a child sound like who grew up in that kind of love? Well, I can answer that question. And I'll tell you how I can answer that question. It's time now to play the Grandkids lightning round, in which I selected a few sentences from each of their memories that connect somehow to their relationship with their Nana. And tell me what you think about this. This is a lightning round. Ready? Laura, from whom you'll hear in a moment. My Nana is stylish, witty, sharp, loving, and sophisticated. And Grandpa is intelligent. Nanny's generous, definitely organized, good-natured, fun-loving, and analytic. Two people utterly committed to each other with unconditional love, who, in many ways, were different from each other. And yet, somehow they formed a partnership that was supportive of each other, and I'll tell you more about that in a minute, too. It's extraordinary. What does Emily have to say about this? Well, I'll tell you. My Nana's too modern to call Grandma. She's more of a Nana. We chit-chat, we do lunch, we analyze the world and what we're hearing on the news, we go shopping for pearls in China, we look at fine art in Boston, we see theater in Halifax in New York. But mostly we catch up on long Sunday afternoon phone calls, me in my kitchen unpacking groceries and starting dinner, laughing and chatting with Nana. Amazing. Now, Sam has a different, he's coming at it differently here. Sam says, Nana, you taught me how, now this is getting down really here now to the basics. Nana, you taught me how to snort with my nose. Now that's a skill. And you always made sure I had plenty of stuffed animals, puzzles, and applesauce. But my favorite thing isn't any specific memory. It's that we get to have so many of you. I feel like we got to spend enough time together that you've both been a real influence on my life. Nana, I've learned a lot from you about how people work and about how to behave in the world. They're remarkable. And Elise, you said, Nana, I love talking about psychology with you. I love being able to share a new passion of mine. My favorite memories are making latkes with you. Kids' minds are so interesting. My favorite memories are making latkes with you and countless trips to Costco. Okay. I always look forward to your delicious cooking and quick and witty remarks. Lena, over the years, I've shared some amazing times with Nana and Grandpa, and some of my favorite memories are walks on the beach with Grandpa, and again, making latkes with Nana. Oh, what are these latkes? Yeah, but yeah, just as a aside, pertinent to nothing in particular. The only latkes I got were from my grandmother, and we didn't even eat them. We saved them and built a patio. Clarissa says, it's always a treat when Nana and Grandpa came to visit us in Orlando. And after everyone had gotten out of bed, and Nana had had her cup of coffee, I don't think they wanted to do anything until she had her cup of coffee. Then Grandpa would look at his travel guide and find an adventure for us to go on that day. Well, apparently some of the days didn't go as smoothly as expected. But in my mind, Clarissa says, they were perfect. All right. Joe? As long as I can remember, my Nana has emanated a sense of warmth and honesty that I still haven't found anywhere else. Nana is someone I feel completely comfortable with. She always knows what to say, something that'll make you nod your head and really think about what she's saying. Nana's easy to be around in a way that's hard for me to explain. She is one of the people I am most simpatico with, and I look forward to every bit of time I spend with her. Look at these different activities. She was able, with each of these, to bond with the one who was having that experience. That's a remarkable woman. Nina? Nana? You are the perfect partner in crime. From cooking Thanksgiving dinner and potato salad to watching forensic files for hours, I absolutely love every moment that I spend as your sidekick. More importantly, you also taught me to never trust the home repair man, since about 9 times out of 10, he is in fact a murderer. And the relationship that I thought was most interesting, most intricate, most intimate was with the love of her life, Len. This caught me by surprise. I knew that Judy had an extraordinary emotional intelligence, and when the kids were all in school, Judy went back to school, and you know, she got her degree in the 70s. It was an exciting time, and when you talked about that, when you talked about the partnership you had with the love of your life. It was subtle. It was remarkable. The insight into that relationship. Maybe we would think that Judy was a strong personality, and I think it's fair to say that Len is no shrinking violet either. And so you would think that the only way they could really get along was if they agreed on everything. But that's not the case. That's what I might have thought, but that's not what Len said. Len said Judy and he disagreed and disagreed sometimes about substantive things, how the children would be raised. So what would stop these strong-willed people from entering into an argument from which there's no exit? But they had a secret, and Len told me what it was. And I say this in all candor. I really do. I have never heard a more respectful description of someone who's loved as Judy was. I've never heard somebody whose words reflected respect so deeply that it was the language of love. That's the truth. You talk to me. I was deeply moved. Now, true, you had different spheres of influence. I mean, Judy's fiefdom was the home and the kids. Len spent more time concentrating on the finances, the car, and the yard. But this was a partnership. You know how they got over these very strongly held and differing opinions, they were absolutely and totally committed to communicating with each other and not going to bed angry. It's just something they didn't do. This was a genuine partnership. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Here's a really, for me, a very surprising detail, a real unanticipated truth. Do you know, just asking, you know what Judy's favorite song was?
Mm-hmm.
You do?
Yes.
I hope it's the same one I have.
Is it Moon River?
Moon. That's really caught me by surprise. Do you know the lyrics to that song? Everyone does? Everyone knows that? Well, now I do too. Moon River, wider than a mile. I'm crossing you in style someday. You dream maker, you heartbreaker. Where you're going, I'm going your way. Two drifters off to see the world. And there's such a lot of world to see. We're after the same rainbow's end, waiting round the bend. My huckleberry friend, Moon River and me. I have to believe that though the last days of her life were difficult, and there's no getting around that, there was pain, and now there's peace. And I believe when it's our time, to cross that river. Waiting round the bend for you will be Judy. I'm waiting round the bend for you, my huckleberry friend. And somehow there's joy in that. There's no fear in that. There's no dread in that. There was pain, but now there's peace. This lyric, this Moon River, it's so like, it's whimsical, and it's playful, and it's hopeful, and it's fanciful. What an extraordinary woman to have such a light touch. Waiting round the bend, my huckleberry friend, Moon River and me. Okay, so that's why we don't say goodbye. Goodbye it suggests the shutting of a door. It signals somehow some sort of ending. But that's not what we think or believe, and we say shalom. We don't say goodbye. We say shalom. We wish for peace. And in the end, you were so good for each other. And we're going to cross that river too someday. And for now, on the other side of that river, my huckleberry friend is the love of your life waiting. Something. So I know it took a long time, but boy, I enjoyed reading this so much, and it testifies to such an elegant, what an extraordinary woman, right? And so we say, may God soon dry the tears from your eyes, and may you soon know peace, and know you are loved by your mother and your father. You are loved by the extended friends and family. I have never seen so much. What a wonderful way to grow up and live, surrounded by love, knowing that you're loved, protected. Extraordinary. So, all right, so I'm saying this, and I'll wrap it up. I know it's been long, but my heart doesn't break for you. My heart breaks for people who have never experienced what you've experienced, who have to go through this life alone, who have no friend waiting for them around the bend. I feel sorry for them. For this family, I know, listen, it's hard, but how many of us get that kind of love in our lives? So all I have to say is you were blessed. You were blessed. Thank you for letting me be part of this. I'm expressing my genuine gratitude. Speaking just personally, and then I'll stop. I needed this. I don't have those kinds of relationships in my family, but this gave me. I felt as if I did. Anyways, Laura, you ready? You okay? Yeah, this happens to me all the time.
That's the right question. Is she ready?
Yeah, it happens to me all the time. Trying to give a Yom Kippur sermon, I look down and I open my folder. There's nothing in it. And I make it up on the spot. Yeah, believe me, they suffered more than me. Laura, thank you for
Sure, my pleasure.
Grandpa asked me to speak to represent Nana's grandchildren. I'm her oldest granddaughter. When I was born, Nana was only 43 years old, so I always had a young, fun grandmother. Nana was the essence of modern style. She followed fashion and design closely. She also knew how to sew very well. When Aunt Francie got married, Nana made junior bridesmaids' dresses for me and Emily. If I needed advice on what to wear or what clothes to buy, I could always count on Nana. She would also often give me her old clothes as hand-me-downs. When I graduated from high school, she gifted me a shopping spree, but wouldn't take me on it until I had been in school for a few months there, so I knew what people were wearing. The same sense of up-to-date style is also true of her home. Nana had an eye for furniture and design. She could also do it well without being pretentious, too obvious, stuffy, or overdone. Her home was clean, beautiful, and contemporary. Nana was a gracious and effortless host and guest. Nana and Grandpa visited me in every place I ever lived until my current house. They even visited me in Buenos Aires and Jerusalem and all of my apartments in New York City. I know Nana really wanted to see my new house. When she was first getting treated for her MDS in the fall, she mentioned how much she hoped to still visit. And when she got sicker and wasn't feeling well at all, not making many phone calls or taking guests, she called her childhood friend Rose to find out what Sherwin-Williams paint color she always recommended, Grant Beige. My house in Nashville was chosen by Nana, and she always joked, "No one can criticize that house. I get offended." I think we were all influenced by her class and style and artistic eye. And Nana was very fun and game for adventure. Traveling with Nana and Grandpa, Grandpa driving and Nana backseat driving, Len was about the journey as much as the destination. Alina says her favorite part of her and Annalise's graduation road trip was when they took a 40-minute scenic drive with tons of switchbacks. Nana loudly and dramatically complained from the back seat for the entirety of the 45-minute drive to entertain everyone in the car. She says it was her favorite part of the, Alina says it was her favorite part of the trip. It felt like Nana was on the adventure of her life, moving, visiting, changing jobs, raising kids, traveling with Grandpa, and enjoying the day-to-day of it, going with the flow, open to whatever would happen next. She had a joie de vivre and a gameness for the fun of things. Emily mentioned to me a story about her sense of humor. Nana had a great sense of humor, this is Emily speaking, and a knack for finding the humor after the fact in something that was frustrating at the time. Emily, you remember the couch delivery? Oh my God, they brought the wrong couch again. We laughed about it for years later, but the couch saga was no joke at the time. Alina also says, my favorite thing about Nana was her super dry sense of humor. She would often make sassy comments while we were sitting next to each other that were only loud enough for me to hear. This was always followed up with a knowing look or a little chuckle. Sam says her sense of humor also stands out to him and also taught him about Jewish humor. She has a quick, sharp wit, Sam speaking. She has a quick, sharp wit, the kind that necessitates both intellect and social intelligence. I remember one of our many trips together. We were staying at a lodge that required a $10 deposit in exchange for a pot to cook with. Nana responded conspiratorially, you know, $10 isn't bad for that pot. Nana was funny and present like that. She paid attention and loved to have inside jokes and special relationships with each of her grandkids. It was really fun to talk to her. We all remember talking with her on the phone or while walking around shopping or on a trip, how she would stop to tell you something and take your arm and tell you something juicy. She loved to gossip and to know everything that was going on. She would make you feel like one of the in crowd. Emily describes it as how she would bring her special people into her circle with secrets and stories. Joe tells me that she always had advice for him. One of my earliest road trip memories of Nana is not with Nana, but on family trips with my mom and dad and Emily and Sam, when we would play the tape in the car of Nana reading The Secret Garden that she made for us. Nana was good at maintaining relationships from a distance. She didn't ever seem far away. She was also good at making us feel special. She would call me the sweetest heart that ever beat. There were, it turned out, many sweetest hearts that ever beat, including my aunts, my mom, my siblings, and my grandpa. Nana and Grandpa were such a good team, such a good couple, as you've heard, as partners, but also as grandparents who prioritized their relationship with us. Aaron, my husband, says, I just always think of them as a unit. In Emily's words, one of Nana's most endearing qualities was her love for Grandpa. She talked about Grandpa with love and admiration all the time. I think she's told many of us, I'm just drawn to winners. She was rooting for the Patriots in a Super Bowl because she liked winners like Grandpa at some point. Being part of Nana and Grandpa's family has always been very special for all of us. We are very lucky to have been in Nana's inner orbit and to be showered with her love and hard work, her attention to detail and thoughtfulness, her style and fun, her intelligence and sharp wit, the sweetest heart that ever beat, and her humor. I know what Nana would say if she heard us saying all these nice things about her. No, stop, don't. Nana, I love you, and I'll really miss you.
Yes.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Laura.
Can I read? Do I have it? I think you've got it.
No, you have it. You marked it up. I have it.
No, no, I didn't. You have it.
Do I have it?
Yep.
I don't think so. This is my original.
Yeah, that's what
No, where's, you had a typed copy. This one,
I have a copy of that?
yeah, you have a typed copy. We wrote, you.
Benham
took
has it
out-
on his phone, Grandpa, it's okay. Benham has it on his phone.
They're getting, they're.
Grandpa.
You're welcome. Well, no, you can't use this one.
Here it is.
We
It's all
changed some
changed
stuff,
up.
so many days.
Don't read the top, that's just a note to you.
Can you read that little print?
They might be able to print it.
Yeah. I've asked the rabbi to speak for me today because I know I can't do it. On one of my previous attempts to speak at a funeral, my own father's, I became so emotional that no one could understand what I was saying. So please allow me to speak to you. And let me use his voice to do two things. First, to thank some of you who helped us during these last 8 months while Judy fought me against MDS and then leukemia. And second, to tell you a little bit about how I'm feeling. Back in July, when Judy started her frequent visits to Mayo, I had COVID. I was in a COVID fog, completely unaware that her MDS had become a problem. I have so many people to thank for checking in on us, preparing meals. My daughters and grandchildren, nieces, nephews, and brothers who came to stay with us throughout her illness. There was rarely more than a 3-day period that someone wasn't at the house with us, so we were never alone and had what we needed. And Laura, our granddaughter, and was an oncologist and palliative care specialist who exchanged texts with Judy often several times a day to advise her on dealing with the many side effects of chemo, to interpret what the results of the blood work, and to reassure Judy that she was doing everything possible to fight the cancer. Thank you, family. Thank you, Vicki Kennedy, for organizing the Bethel meal train, and a number of people too large to thank each individually here, but I will do that personally. And thank you to our neighbors who drove Judy and sent food. Thank you for thanking me. Over the desk in our breakfast room, there is a plaque that says, if you want to feel rich, just count all of the gifts and blessings you have that money cannot buy. And by this standard, I am one of the world's richest men. I was blessed with a wife who had the same goals in life as I did, who had more confidence in me than I had in myself. And that wasn't easy when I was in my 20s and 30s. Who spoke behind my back only of my good attributes, not my bad ones. Just ask any of my daughters or our friends. We were blessed with 3 daughters and 8 grandchildren, all of them healthy, highly intelligent, and looking to make this a better world for themselves and for others. I have 3 brothers. When we get together frequently to enjoy watching sports and sharing our experiences, my family have shown me how loyal they are to me, and I can count on them as I go into the next stage of life, the one I will not have Judy at my side. But now that I think of it, she will always be there with me, in my thoughts and in my heart. And when it comes to important decisions, I can always ask myself, what would Judy do? Because truly, I am one of the world's richest men. That's something. Thank you. That's something.
That was really nice, Dad.
All right. If you're comfortably able, may I invite you to please rise. El Rachamim Shochem B'Menomim Hamasei Menuchan Horakam Kan Peshetina. Im Kiloshim Utorim Kazor Arkia Masidim Et Nishmat Eshet Chavir. Shel Chalo Lema. Rachamim Yasi Be'at Peseder Kan Pablo Lamim. Yitzor Chachayim. Let Shvata Aragun Havata. V'Yakut Shalom Al Mishkava V'Namor. Amen. Compassionate God, eternal spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltered presence to Judy Elikan who enters eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence, and let her soul be bound up in the bonds of everlasting life. Go. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. This includes our chapel service, and we'll continue our service Graveside. Yeah, before we do that, while we're together, here, these are the words hallowed by generations.
Yeah.
I don't need that.
Here, Mom, you can.
There we go. Yitgadal, Yitgadash, Yirabah, Ba'amad, Yirah, Yirtei, Yamlik, Malchutez, L'chayekon, Yamlikon, L'chayek, L'chavei, Yisrael, Ba'galam, Yizman, Karim, Yimru, Amen. Ye'esh, Shnei, Rabba, L'garach, Galam, Omei, Amayo, Yizgarach, Yishabach, Yitzlahar, Yitzman, Yitzaseh, Yitzhar, Yitzalek, Yitzlach, Shmei, Kushal, Riyuru, Le'ar, Yikol, Yirchasab, Shirasab, Tushkapasab, Nechamasab, Amiran, Yomam, Yimru, Amen. Ye'esh, Shalom, Rabba, Mishamayim, L'chaim, Aleinu, Ya'akol, Yisrael, Yimru, Amen. Oseh, Shalom, Yiromam, U'yaseh, Shalom, Aleinu, Ya'akol, Yisrael, Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who want comfort, to all who are bereaved. Let us say.
You can just leave those on your chairs, those mortar cottage sheets. At this time, we will be doing a walking procession to the graveside. If you wish to come out and join us, I ask that you allow the family to exit first and then follow them.
Oh, yes, we do.
You want to do a show?
Yes,
No, we
yeah,
have-
would you, yes, we wanted to have everybody. to the-
Following our services, you're all invited back to the Elikan household, and we'll do a Shiva Minyan this afternoon, and your presence is remarkably comforting.
We have lunch for everybody.
Yes, we did.
Set up about sundown.
Just, no,
after
the
only
service.
going to Minka because
Because
it's
it's-
Shabbos.
Shabbos Marv, that's
Yeah.
right.
We can't do.
That's right.
All right, you ready? You're remarkable. You're remarkable.
So we can do midnight.
We'll do Minka, and that way we can, it gets
Right,
too
right.
difficult. Thank you, thank you.
Oh, people need to know they don't have to go crazy. I didn't hear what you said.
You said to walk
You just
outside
gotta
with
follow
the
us.
Yeah.
We're just like
Follow
family.
them.
Know that they don't have to go.
Yeah, they
we
know, Mom.
understand.
He said no.
He
announced it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know.
Are we supposed to walk?
I don't know.
You're supposed to follow.
Me too.
Yes.
Where's Mark?
He walked outside.
I don't know who they said.
He just said to follow.
Just family?
No, everybody, but let the family go first.
Are you going out?
He's 21.
You don't want to say when you go to.
Yeah. My grandson just turned 20. So yeah, they were very.